Thank you, thank you. And let me say a personal thank you to all of you. It's great to be here with my friends from the League of Conservation Voter Education Fund, the California LCV, National Resources Defense Council, and the Center for American Progress Action Fund. You all have been at the forefront of fighting global warming. And this forum is another one of many examples of your doing what's necessary to raise awareness about this issue, raise awareness about this crisis, and to inject it into the center of the debate, which it should be in this campaign and this election. You know, I'm not here to tell the people who know very well that global warming is a crisis, that it is a crisis. You already know that. But I am here to tell you we need a President of the United States who won't just deliver that message to a friendly audience, which is what you are. We need a president who will be straight with the American people about the challenges and the opportunities that all of us face when it comes to global warming. A week ago on Veterans Day, I talked about the sacrifices of America's finest, those who gave life for our country, who made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our way of life. I believe that today, our generation, all of us, we owe it to them and to our children to face some hard truths. One of those truths is that the system in Washington, D.C. is broken, and there is no better example of that than global warming. Now, thanks to the hard work, and I heard Senator Clinton speaking about this, thanks to the hard work of Vice President Al Gore, we all know, and the world now knows, that global warming is in fact a crisis. We know that the need for action is urgent, and we know that the steps we need to take are right in front of us. All we have to do is have a little backbone and courage to actually do it. But Washington is not taking them. And when I look at Washington today, I see politicians who are too afraid of rocking the boat to face up to the challenges in front of us. I see good people who are caught up in a bad system that overwhelms their best intentions. I see elected leaders trying to do the right thing for the people they represent, but they are overrun because of the need to spend half of their time chasing the money they need to be elected and re-elected. And I see the oil and gas companies blocking progress by spending millions of dollars and deploying hundreds of lobbyists in Washington to make sure that America stays addicted to foreign oil and fossil fuels. Meanwhile, more and more evidence that global warming is here is piling up. We now know that the Arctic ice cap could literally be gone in 23 years. Just yesterday, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change followed up on its groundbreaking reports from earlier this year with a warning that global warming will have abrupt and irreversible consequences if we're not willing to act immediately. That's more evidence than any politician should ever need. And yet, 2 weeks from now, America will send a delegate to the United Nations conference in Bali with no ideas and no solutions. It is embarrassing for the United States of America to be in that position. Throughout this campaign, I've been very clear about what I think we need to do to face this challenge. I'm proud of the fact that I came out very early and very aggressively about what we need to do to attack global warming. I said then that we need to cap greenhouse gas pollution starting in 2010 with a cap and auction system, and that we need to reduce it by 20% by 2020 and 80% by 2050. That we need to lead the world in a new global climate treaty. That we need to meet the demand for more electricity through efficiency for the next decade instead of producing more electricity. And we need to create a new energy economy fund to support U.S. research and development in energy technology and other advances by auctioning off $10 billion of greenhouse pollution permits and repealing $3 billion in oil company subsidies. Now, I have heard some politicians talk about a cap-and-trade system as not going far enough, as a way to avoid the word tax. But I believe that candidates running for president need to be straight with the American people about exactly what we're proposing. We've had enough double talk. We've had enough politician talk. We need to be honest with people. The truth is that carbon caps will have an impact on the cost of fossil fuels. Anyone who pretends that's not true is not being straight with America. And by the way, it is a political strategy that is absolutely doomed to failure because we are never going to get the change we need by pretending that this is going to be easy and that no sacrifice will be required. The truth is, The truth is that the big change we need will not be easy. It'll take the sustained commitment of a generation of Americans. The American people understand that, and we need a president who will challenge them to be part of the solution, not patronize them by pretending that the problem doesn't exist or that some politician can solve it for them. Back in March, only 2 days after I'd announced my own global warming plan, as many of you know, Elizabeth and I sat in a hospital room and made the decision to continue with this campaign. We made that decision because both of us believe that fighting for a better America, fighting to make sure we pass a better world on to our children, is the cause of our lives. The fact that the challenges now rising up around us loom larger now than they did back then has only strengthened our resolve to continue with this effort, to keep on telling the truth about the problems we face and what it's going to take to fix those problems. Right now, we're not just turning a blind eye to global warming. We're also missing an opportunity to lead the world and reclaim the spirit of American ingenuity that has driven great advances and helped us overcome great challenges in the past. Right now, we're sitting by the side of the road as foreign companies race ahead with developing green technology. Bell Labs invented the solar sail in New Jersey in 1954. But today, 90% of solar panels are manufactured overseas. China's even produced a solar billionaire. General Motors made the first modern electric car, but today Toyota and Honda lead the world in producing hybrids. Just last week, I saw this headline: foreign firms envision wind farms dotting the U.S. Why should foreign firms be the ones taking the lead in building wind farms here in America? Why is that not being done by American firms? If we take the steps that I propose, American entrepreneurs and manufacturers can lead the world in developing the green technology we need to generate clean, reliable energy and to use it more efficiently. There are so many ways that we can seize this opportunity and unleash America's innovators to lead the way into the new energy economy. We need to let entrepreneurs try 1,000 different approaches, not centrally planned government handouts. Let me give you a few examples of exactly what I mean. First, I will cut carbon welfare subsidies for oil companies to raise money that will be invested in renewable fuels like wind, solar, biofuels, and turbocharging our energy efficiency technology. Second, I'll spark a new era of innovation and competition by modernizing our electricity grids. New smart grids will let entrepreneurs create renewable energy and then to sell it back into the grid. They'll also be safer, more efficient, and more reliable. Third, I will seed innovation by giving low-interest loans to homeowners and small businesses for new technologies like solar, hot water, and electric systems. These systems are expensive, as all of you know, up front, but they pay off for families in the long run, particularly when excess power can be sold to their neighbors. Fourth, I'll create a new market for energy efficiency. Right now, utilities profit from selling electricity, but have absolutely no incentive to help their customers use less energy. I will call on states to separate utilities' energy profits from their sales, as California has done, so that they can profit by meeting customers' needs with more efficient technology. Now, don't get me wrong, getting to the new energy future that all of us want to see happen for this country that we love so much will not be a cakewalk. It's true that the steps we have to take will cost money. It's true that some of these steps we need to take will mean higher energy prices. And given the scope of the crisis, there may be further steps that we need to take down the road. Every time we get new, up-to-date scientific information, it indicates that global warming is more a crisis than we thought before. But in the end, families can come out ahead if they switch to renewable fuels, use energy efficiently, and make smaller sacrifices in their own lives. I think we're ready for that. I think actually the American people are ready for a president who calls on them to sacrifice and asks them to be patriotic about something other than war. Because I believe we are at a critical point in this country's history. It's a place we've found ourselves before. Those who've gone before us have climbed bigger hills. My parents' generation crossed the Atlantic, went into Europe, freed Europe, and defeated Hitler and fascism. They went across the Pacific and defeated Japan. Then they came home and built the Pentagon, one of the biggest buildings in the world, in less than a year. And they built the great American middle class, the great engine of economic growth that the world has never seen duplicated. Those who have come before us have climbed the hills of inequality and fought the battle for civil rights. They've outlasted the dark force of communism. They've lived through recessions, an energy crisis, and the Great Depression. And every time they have proven that if we stand up and face the challenges in front of us, a better future will be our reward. This is the moral test of our generation. Will we leave our children a better world than we found, as our parents and our grandparents did? If we intend to pass this test, we have to ask ourselves a basic question. Are we willing to put political calculation aside and actually stand up with a little backbone for what's right? Are we willing to say that the time for compromise and half measures is over, and that now is the time for our party, the Democratic Party, to be bold, to stand up for what it is we actually believe in? When we look at our children in the eye and they ask us what happened, well, we have to tell them that we left this mess for them because the challenges were just too great. And we were too careful, too timid, too cautious. We didn't have the guts to do what needed to be done. Or will we be able to look them in the eye and say, in the face of great challenges, we, our generation, all of us, we stood up. We did what 20 generations of Americans have done before us. We knew that we had a responsibility to them and future generations to preserve the planet. That's our responsibility. If we choose the right path, if we make smart choices today, we can create the better America that all of us dream about. We can have a prosperous middle class while preserving our natural resources and the beauty of our planet. We can get America off its addiction to oil. We can show the world that our response to adversity is not to stick our head into sand, not to cower in the corner, but to unleash a new era of American ingenuity, just like we have done in the past and just like our fathers and grandfathers have done before us. That is the future at the top of the hill. It's going to take courage. It's going to take resolve. We're going to have to leave behind political calculation. But we're Americans, and the American people have never, ever shrunk from a challenge. And I don't think we're going to start now. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, if you like, you can stay there or make yourself comfy in a chair for a bit of a conversation.
I'll stand up.
So,
Nobody
you
likes
have
the
a
chair.
powerful vision of how we can change. You're calling on people to sacrifice. How do we get there? I mean, you in your own career, you sacrificed a lot. You've given so much personally to be in this political arena, to bring America along with your vision, to have the opportunity to do that. You're capable of great personal sacrifice. We know that about you. But how, as President of the United States, how do you get America to sacrifice the way you feel that we should in order to accomplish your objectives?
Well, thank you. Here's my response to this. Having now spent, it seems like the last 8 years, campaigning around the country,
It's a lot of bad food.
I've been talking, but not just talking, I've been listening. And there is a hunger in America. The American people are actually hungry to do something as a national community. The problem is no one has asked them to. I mean, after September 11th, George Bush said, go shopping, right? What Americans want, and you can see it, the evidence is everywhere. I mean, really. You saw the response immediately after September 11th of the American people. I'm not talking about the government. You saw what happened when the hurricane hit the Gulf Coast. I mean, the government was an incredible mess, but Americans went down there, contributed, volunteered. I took 700 college kids who gave up their spring break literally just to go to New Orleans and help rehabilitate houses. I mean, I think there is a huge hunger and desire in America to take action. And I still remember, and I know a lot of you do, the famous John Kennedy speech, ask not what your country can do for you. Well, that's where we are today. We need a president who will look America in the eye and say, we're not going to be careful anymore. We're not going to be politically cautious. We're not going to look at polls to figure out what I'm supposed to say to you. We know what needs to be done. And I'm going to call on you to be willing to sacrifice, to make America what it's capable of being. But I will say, I think in addition to a president who calls on Americans to sacrifice and galvanizes the American people around the idea of facing big challenges together with bold action, with clear, bold action and clear, bold leadership. I think beyond that, we have to recognize something which will probably creep into every answer to every one of your questions, which is the government has become corrupt. And we need to be honest about that. It is. Why does America not have universal health care? We don't have universal health care because of drug companies, insurance companies, and their lobbyists. Why does America not attack global warming in the way that we need to? We know why we haven't. Oil companies, power companies, gas companies, and their lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And all of these big challenges that America faces, it's going to be impossible to be successful in doing those, in responding to those challenges, unless we have a president who tells America the truth and says to America, this has happened in American history before. We don't have to stand quietly by and let this narrow, well-financed group of interests run your government. We don't. We can actually go out and reclaim this democracy. And when we reclaim the democracy, together, I'm not talking about just me, when somebody believes, when the President of the United States actually believes in the power of America, not just the power of the presidency, who believes that the power is out here in communities like this, and what we need to do is go out, galvanize America, and go into Washington, D.C., reclaim this government, reclaim this democracy, and take the power out of the hands of oil companies, gas companies, ExxonMobil, and their lobbyists in Washington, D.C. We can beat these people, but we have to be willing to take them on.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator. Mary?
As President Edwards, in addition to taking on the oil companies and the coal companies, et cetera, I think you're going to find that in talking about sacrifice and building that mandate for the shared sacrifice that you referred to, that the burdens and the benefits are not necessarily spread equally across this country,
right.
Geographically or in terms of people's careers. And we've talked about this, I think, with a couple of other speakers, that in certain parts of the country where coal is something that is the only or the major source of jobs, maybe the only or major source of fuel for their power plants that they live by, that making that switch may be a little tougher than it is for other places. So how do you address that in terms of building and bringing together the kind of coalition that you're going to need to get this done?
Well, let me answer the question you're asking directly, but I also want to broaden it to the bigger question of how we can use this transition to also help in more economically deprived areas in America. As to coal, I think the reality, and you all probably know this already because you're so active in this area, but I came out very early and very aggressively saying that America should not be building more coal-fired power plants until we have the ability to sequester the carbon and to store it, and we have the capacity to do it. And I've been very clear about that. And I do think for those families and those communities and those regions that are most impacted by that position, we should use, and when we're making the polluters pay, which should generate a minimum of $30 billion in the cap and trade system, we should use a chunk of that money to go in to revitalize those communities, to help them transition, to help support the families. But I think we can do much more than that. I mean, I didn't talk about it earlier from the podium, but as we make this transition from a carbon-based economy to a green economy, I think all of us believe if we do it in a smart way, we can generate a minimum of 1 million new jobs and maybe upwards of 2 million new jobs. And the question is, where will those jobs be located? And my view is we ought to work very hard to generate those jobs and to generate that economic development in the places where people are suffering the most economically. In poor rural areas, in poor inner city areas. I mean, clearly, this is a great opportunity to create jobs, good middle-class jobs that will be able to support a family. And when we talk about the sacrifices that I, as president, will be asking Americans to make, we also have to make sure that they understand that there are extraordinary opportunities here. And those opportunities, I think, if we do it in the right way, in a socially conscious way, we can make certain that those opportunities are generated in the places where people are struggling the most. And a lot of you know this already. I mean, poverty is a huge cause in my own life personally, and I believe it's a national embarrassment that we have 37 million people who wake up every day worried about feeding and clothing their children. We have 35 million. According to a report that literally came out a couple of days ago, we have 35 million people who were hungry last year in America. How in the world are we going to tolerate this? We have to do something about it. And we can use this transition to a green economy to accomplish at least part of that.
Quick follow-up, Senator. As a quick follow-up to this, I heard something that I hadn't seen in your material. Did I get this right? If the rights to pollute, to release carbon were auctioned off, you'd take those funds to pay for the rebuilding of the lives of peoples who will have their jobs or their industries or their neighborhoods dislocated by the reduction of carbon in our economy?
A portion of it. Now, a portion of it, a sizable chunk of it, is going to go to invest in wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuels, to making certain that American car companies are building the most innovative vehicles on the planet, and to making sure that we're developing the technologies that we need to develop to make the transition. But some of that money can clearly be used, because beyond that, what I've proposed is about $13 billion of the 30 go into that. Beyond that, a sizable chunk of money can be used to help these communities. I think
enough so that no one would lose their standard of living.
Enough so that we would provide all the support we can. I can't make that promise. I don't know if that's true or not.
All right, thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Senator. We've been talking these last two questions about equity and fairness inside America during the transition, but the question of equity and fairness internationally is even more stark. The divide between winners and losers. A certain amount of change, climate change, is inevitable, already built into the system, and those impacts are going to hit the world's poor and vulnerable very hard. There's nothing we can do at this point to prevent those changes. What can America do to help lift up those parts of the world that are going to be hit worst by the changes that we had a substantial hand in creating?
Well, that's exactly right, and there are a number of things that we can do. First, America and for that matter the international community are providing a minuscule part of the help that the countries that are struggling the most in the world need. We're doing nowhere close to what we need to be doing, and we need to be there to help them in this extraordinarily difficult time, which we know they're going to face. How difficult it is depends on what we do and other countries in the world do and what American leadership is. But I think, first of all, we have to be willing to invest in a way that we're not investing today. And we know some of the things that need to be done, you know, to raise up roads, bridges, maybe some walls need to be built to provide protection. And we know some of the more drought-resistant irrigation techniques, more drought-resistant crops. I mean, I think those are some of the things that in the third world America needs to be developing. But can I go just for a moment, go outside global warming, but it's a connected issue. I mean, it is, you talk about the poorest countries in the world being the ones who will struggle and suffer the most as a result of climate change. But that's true of everything. I mean, they suffer the most in every conceivable way. I mean, half of the planet, 3 billion people, live on $2 or less a day. The abject poverty that exists in Africa, in parts of Asia, in some parts of Latin America are heartbreaking. And I think if most Americans saw it, they wouldn't think it was tolerable. It's not tolerable. And the idea that America can be a leader in isolation on global warming without actually being a moral leader on all the big issues that face the world, I think is completely misunderstands what leadership is. And and I don't want to stray too far from subject, but if I can just take 60 seconds, some of the things that America should be doing, we should be leading an international effort to make education available to 100 million children in the world who have no education, and particularly in Africa, but not just Africa. We should be helping stop the spread of disease. We should have at least $50 billion over the next 5 years invested in HIV/AIDS and making certain that education is being provided and that treatment is being provided around the world. We should be simple things like clean drinking water and sanitation. I mean, I know myself from the work that I've done with the International Rescue Committee in Africa would make an enormous difference. An enormous difference, things that all of us take for granted. And economic development, things like micro-lending and microfinance. The only way that America is going to be a credible leader on huge issues, crisis issues like global warming, is the world has to see us as a force for good in the world again. They need to see America doing big and important things, not just for ourselves, but for humanity.
I'm glad you brought that up because how can America lead on climate change? We're seen as the biggest part of the problem. No American president since George Bush the Elder has followed up on America's commitment to reduce emissions. Our credibility is shot when it comes to climate change, and there's a perception that we went to war over oil.
Yeah.
So how do you restore America's credibility here?
Well,
you said America will be a leader on global warming in the preface to what you were saying, but I'm not sure we're there yet.
Oh, well, I know we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, I think, again, it's a mistake to think of global warming out of the context of America being a credible leader. And I might add, a country that's worthy of leadership. Because to be worthy of leadership as the most powerful nation on the planet, the world needs to see America meeting its responsibility, not just to our own selfish needs, but our responsibility to humanity. Because we have an enormous responsibility to humanity. And all the things I just spoke about are a piece of that. Leading on an issue that directly affects all of the world, global warming, is another piece of that. But the world needs to see that America is willing to do unselfish things, that we're willing to do the right and responsible things. As you well point out, and everyone in this room knows, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we're an example for bad. We're not an example for good. And so I think a variety of things are going to be required to reestablish America's moral leadership in the world. First of all, this is way off subject. We've got to end this mess of a war in Iraq. But beyond that, we also need to be doing positive things, which I just spoke about a few minutes ago. And we're going to have to reverse the things that have done such extraordinary damage besides Iraq to America. And I can tell you, as President of the United States, I will close Guantanamo, which I think is a national embarrassment. We will stop illegal spying on Americans, which is exactly what's been going on. We will no more rendition, no more secret prisons. And I have to say, I would be willing to bet I speak for almost everybody here. The notion that we're having a debate in America about what kind of torture is permissible, this is not our America, and we need to take it back. That's what we need to do.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Let's talk about the reality that we're facing now and during the duration of the campaign, and probably again in the beginnings of your presidency, should you reach it. And the question there is, what actually do we get done? And I guess we're getting back to the pragmatic again, and the Congress and the legislation that we face. And you've taken some strong positions on the moral grounds for what we need to do on climate. But the reality is that none of the bills that seem to have a chance of moving in the Congress, given that you need 60 votes in the Senate, are anything really very close to what you're asking for.
Right.
So what would be your position on that? Would you say work to make it good and then just get a step in the right direction, or step back and say, no, if it's not good enough, we just shouldn't have a bill at all? We should just wait till we get a better one.
No, well, first of all, I don't see it as an either or. I think there are a number of things that we need to do. I think one of the mistakes that presidents sometimes make is They think that everything happens inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C., and forget that the rest of America exists. And the most powerful weapon the president has is not to sit around a conference table in Washington, D.C. with lobbyists for oil companies and gas companies and power companies, or, for that matter, to sit around with politicians who are scared of their own shadow. The most powerful power that the president has is the ability to convince America and to galvanize America around taking action. Because the one thing I'm certain of, if we convince, and it's not just me, obviously, you all are enormously important in this, if we do what so many have done before us on civil rights, on women's rights, on equal rights, on all the big issues that have confronted this country, if we do what generations before us have done, and we step up and we speak out and we show some strength and courage, the politicians will follow. They'll follow like lemmings. And what we need to do is show the leadership. So to answer your question, I do not accept the proposition that we have to accept less. I don't think we have to accept less. I think we can convince America to take strong, aggressive action. And I think we can also, and by the way these things get weeded down is by the lobbying influence of these powerful interests. I think their power needs to be taken away from them. We need a president who galvanizes America around publicly financing all of our campaigns to get the money out of politics. And if you know, it's not a good sign that I just saw the clock for the first time. I've obviously been paying no attention to it. I was going to say one last thing on this. And I will say, for everybody in this room who believes deeply in the progressive agenda, and I do, I believe so deeply in the progressive agenda. If you believe in the progressive agenda, that it is true that there are practical politics involved, and that we need to strengthen Democratic numbers in the House and the Senate. And the one thing I would say is we won in my judgment, we won the November 2006 election. I wish it were true that we won because America fell in love with the Democratic Party. I don't think so. I think what America fell in love with is they want something different. They wanted change. And if we have a presidential candidate and a campaign that's all about big, bold change, and I mean, I'm not talking about little stuff and baby steps. I'm talking about transforming America and transforming the way that America leads in the world. If that's what we're about, and we're talking about weeding out the corruption in Washington, D.C., not the status quo, not accepting the way things operate, not turning our backs on it. I'm telling you, the one thing I only speak for myself, I am absolutely certain that I can go into virtually any swing congressional district in America and any swing state in the U.S. Senate races, and I will be helpful in our campaign to strengthen our numbers in the House and the Senate, which is what it's going to take to really move a bold, progressive agenda, which is what all of us are committed to.
Senator, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick follow-up here from my colleague, Dave, if you could, please.
As a final question, it's heartening to hear you talk about this stuff here, but as we have mentioned earlier, it's difficult to get through the media filter, which doesn't seem much interested in this. We're in a sort of bizarre situation here where the candidates seem out ahead of media interest and even in some cases NGOs on this issue. How do you cut through the media filter? How do you make this central to your campaign in a way that America hears it?
Well, first of all, we have an enormous pulpit as a presidential candidate. And we have a chance, and by the way, just by way of sort of giving you a sense of what I hear around the country, and a lot of you hear the same thing, people know that this is a problem. They don't yet understand the crisis nature of the problem. I mean, they think of it as something that maybe we can do something about down the road. They have no concept that urgent, immediate, bold action is required. And that's where the presidential candidates come in, and that's where the presidency comes in. Now, it is true, trust me, I understand this better than most, how hard it is to fight through the media filter. And by the way, just as an aside, you know, I don't personally want Rupert Murdoch to own every newspaper in America. Can we do something about media consolidation in this country? And I'm sorry, one other aside. I can tell you when I am President of the United States, we're going to do something about not just the consolidation of the media, but these big corporations taking over everything in the United States of America. But the bottom line is, I think if we're out there pushing, it is very disappointing to me that even in what you would think of as an objective forum, the presidential debates, you know, we spend more time talking about polls and sniping than we do about how we're going to save the planet. And it seems to me that we ought to be talking about in these presidential debates and out on the stump every day, and I do, and I'm not excluding anybody else. I suspect the other candidates do too. We're out there driving the issue. I'm out there driving the issue. It's why I came out so early in my campaign on this issue. I think we can drive it through. I think we are confronted with a media that's more interested in the horse race than they are in the substance. Thank you. But you're going to help them be interested in me. That's what you're going to do. Thank you all very much. Wonderful to be with you. You're terrific. Thank you.